There's been a wonderful and exciting emergence of directing talent in the world of movies recently. The enigmatic Robert Eggers continues to baffle, amaze, and delight movie fans with films such as The Seagull Smashing, The Lighthouse, and the brutal, dazzling The Northman, while the likes of Jordan Peele, when he's not voicing badass bunnies,
to infinity and your mom.
and Prano Bailey Bond pushed the boundaries of genre filmmaking with movies such as Us, Nope, and The Excellent Censor, respectively. These exciting, talented directors are the future of the industry, and just a few examples of the many wonderful people making huge waves in the film industry nowadays. However, every movie director, no matter how much of an auteur they are in their own right, with their own visual style and flair, will have taken some inspiration from the generation before them in order to completely find their filmmaking voice. Therefore, this episode is focusing on two titans of the entertainment world with a back catalog of work that has not only pushed the boundaries of blockbuster filmmaking, but has also introduced fantastical creatures and horrific visual effects to the industry, proving that there is always an ethereal beauty to be found in the grotesque. Both Peter Jackson and Guillermo Del Toro have proven to be two of the most influential directors still in the biz today, and their body of work is enthralling to revisit, almost as enthralling as subscribing to our JoBlo Originals channel. So if you like this sort of content, click that button before Gollum gnaws off your finger. However, which of these filmmaking legends deserves to forever live with the beautiful elves of Rivendell, and which should be locked up like a geek and forced to chew the heads off unfortunate chickens? There's only one way to find out, you gorgeous gore-hounds. Face off!
Disclaimer, no actual science was used to determine the outcome of Face Off. Your results may vary. Please do not consume Face Off if you are allergic to conjecture, opinion, or general nonsense.
Round 1, Horror Roots. As anybody who watches our shows here on JoBlo knows, we love horror, and these two directors are masters of that particular craft, with movies that have incredibly iconic and disturbing imagery. This particularly is true of Peter Jackson's early career, and films such as Meet the Feebles, Brain Dead, otherwise known as Dead Alive, and Bad Taste are seriously messed up. In the mood for a show-stopping song about the joys of sodomy?
Let me tell you about sodomy. You must think it very oddly.
No problem. What about a scene with a skull flapping open to reveal spongy brain matter inside, or multiple zombie deaths by an upturned lawnmower? Jackson's got your back, man! It wasn't just the splatterfest of these movies that defined Jackson's early career, however. He also showed he could deliver character-driven movies such as The Beautiful, Heavenly Creatures, and also bigger-budget Hollywood horror comedies like the underrated Michael J. Fox classic, The Frighteners. It's movies such as these, as well as his mega gory horror effects and efforts, that paved the way for his genre-defining journey to Middle-earth.
You shall not pass!
Now, be honest, horror fans, what's your favorite messed up horror movie of all time? Let us know in the comments, as it's always good to know what floats the boat of our awesome viewers. Or sinks it, even. While Peter Jackson was off hurling decapitated heads across the floor or making Muppets addicted to drugs and throwing up on stage, Guillermo Del Toro was making a slightly different and no less awesome approach to his early career. Cronos from 1993 saw the director first collaborate with the great acting legend Ron Perlman and also the late great character actor Federico Lupi, a partnership that would continue to flourish in Del Toro's later work. Cronos marked the first time Del Toro's fetish for creatures that rule the night surfaced, and it's a worthy entry in the director's early career that led him to making a giant splash in Hollywood with the excellent but often underappreciated Mimic. The movie is a great science fiction horror flick and is regarded by some as one of the best monster movies of the early 90s. It also showed that, just like Stephen King, Guillermo Del Toro doesn't mind showing kids being killed on screen. The director wasn't done with scaring audiences just yet, and the masterful Spanish ghost story The Devil's Backbone followed in 2001, paving the way for the director to really hone his filmmaking craft in mainstream Hollywood. While his early career boasts some amazing movies and the promise of suitably disturbing films to come, this round goes to the balls to the wall insanity of Peter Jackson's early work. Verdict: Peter Jackson.
Don't tempt me, Frodo.
Round 2, creature features. What's the first thing that springs to mind when you think of these two directors? Visionary filmmaking? Check. A touch of the macabre? Double check. Fantastical creatures inhabiting equally fantastical surroundings? Triple check. Not only does the work of both directors feature groundbreaking visual effects, both practical and CGI, but the images they have conjured from their wonderful minds are now firmly engraved in horror iconography. Guillermo Del Toro not only has a knack for creating compelling narrative in his movies, but he also whips up creature designs that once seen cannot be forgotten in a hurry. Just take a look at the bearded genius's vivid designs in his most iconic movies for inspiration and the way in which the creature design is informed by their environment. The faun in Pan's Labyrinth is unnerving and uncanny, but not in a typically horror way, in the same manner that the Devil's Backbone Santi is, with his cracked porcelain face and creepy bleeding head. The faun is the main creature in Pan's Labyrinth that represents a greater existential horror than that of the Pale Man from the same movie. And although the Pale Man is almost forgotten about by Ophelia in the movie, the creature design is arguably the most iconic of Del Toro's impressive work. This is just a glimpse into the imaginative creature design of his work and his influence as executive producer on Guillermo Del Toro's Cabinet of Curiosities on Netflix. This shines through with the creature design, especially on that wonderful giant rat in the second episode, Graveyard Rats. Speaking of bearded geniuses, which, let's face it, pun intended, it is a must if you want to be a directing great, Spielberg, Lucas, Coppola, Kubrick, De Palma, all cultivated great beards. Anyways, Peter Jackson joins the ranks of great bearded geniuses, and like Del Toro, the creature design his flicks have also found their way into cinematic iconography. The aforementioned early horror movies in his back catalogs are unforgettable, especially the Meet the Feebles Muppets and the aliens in bad taste with their grotesque heads and penchant for flipping the bird. However, it wasn't until he signed on to direct those tiny straight to the bargain bin Middle-earth movies that he was really able to let his imagination go wild with some help with Tolkien's descriptions, of course. His horror roots are evident in many of the movie's creatures, not least the wonderful Gollum and his ghastly transformation from hobbit to raw fish-devouring monster. In fact, most of Middle-earth's evil side is brought to life in grotesque fashion, and even the disappointing Hobbit movies feature some excellent character designs, even if some look like they have testicles swinging from their chins.
Okay, he's a Balchinian.
While Peter Jackson has an undeniable flair for creature design in his movies, this round ultimately goes to the bearded genius who gifted the world the Pale Man and the Faun. Verdict: Guillermo Del Toro.
Cut the crap.
Round 3, busting blocks. The mark of any good director is not only to produce a body of work that is consistently engaging, exciting, and narratively rich, it is also to conquer the dreaded studio suits
Hit that director in the face really hard
and successfully bust some blocks. Like their creature designs, both of these directing titans have their own unique franchises that have become iconic in their own right, but which one takes the crown this round? Guillermo Del Toro is generally more well known for his art house horror sensibilities, but his foray into mainstream Hollywood filmmaking has also been very successful, with 2002's Blade 2 being an excellent early example of his talents. He then went on to create the definitive incarnation of Hellboy with the awesome first movie and its sequel showcasing the wonderful Ron Perlman in the title role. Pan's Labyrinth was sandwiched in between the Hellboy films and was an enchanting return to Del Toro's more art house, macabre fairy tale filmmaking. But Hellboy really showed what he was capable of, appeasing studio suits and handling a larger budget while still satisfying hardcore fans. Unfortunately, those fans never got to see the long-awaited Hellboy 3 from Del Toro, and instead, we had to endure Neil Marshall's violent but lackluster 2019 reboot.
Are you serious?
However, the director did go on to direct the visually stunning, if lacking in the narrative and compelling characters department, Pacific Rim in 2013, a fun movie that proved Del Toro has the chops for large-scale action. Speaking of large-scale action, it doesn't get any bigger than attempting to adapt the apparently unfilmable The Lord of the Rings book series into a successful theatrical movie experience. However, that is exactly what the Kiwi bearded genius did. Peter Jackson's most significant mainstream movie before he conquered Middle-earth was the aforementioned horror comedy The Frighteners with Michael J. Fox. And although its budget was nothing like what he would work with on the Rings movies, it showcases his horror stylings with some wonderful ghostly designs and thrilling set pieces. It's the incredible achievement that Jackson had in creating the Lord of the Rings trilogy that really shows what he's capable of as a blockbuster filmmaker, with his signature directing style everywhere in the films, from whirling camera work, humor, and darkness in equal measure. Although the trilogy is now more than 20 years old, and seriously, how the hell did that happen so quickly? The wonderful VFX from What a Digital still hold up today, especially with Gollum, and it's a dazzling achievement to behold. Del Toro has some excellent big screen movies to enjoy, but they can't compete with what Jackson achieved with The Lord of the Rings. Verdict: Peter Jackson.
Don't tempt me further.
Round 4, art house style. For all their glorious abilities in creating titanic monster face-offs and orc hunting skirmishes, these two directors are also auteurs in their own right. Every top director working today has their own signature trademarks, whether it's Spielberg's crash zooms or themes of family in his movies, Chris Nolan and the excellent shepherd tone he uses in his scores, or even James Cameron's obsession with blue cats in space. While Guillermo Del Toro has proved he can handle blockbuster movies, he really shines as a director when he focuses on more intimate, beautifully crafted tales. Perhaps his most gorgeous and surreal movie has to be the Spanish Civil War set Pan's Labyrinth, in which a young orphan girl called Orfilia escapes the clutches of her sadistic army officer stepfather into an eerie but captivating fantasy world. Del Toro's use of haunting imagery in the movie is spellbinding, and he further emphasizes his talent for employing color to create meaning in his movies in later efforts, The Shape of Water and Nightmare Alley, with a palette of greens and blues that beautifully encapsulate the characters and their surroundings. He's a true visionary, and while his more mainstream filmmaking style is impressive, he comes into his own wonderful and surreal element in his more independent projects. Peter Jackson, after his early horror splatterfest and before he tackled ghastly apparitions with Marty McFly, took a beautiful detour into more independent drama filmmaking with the stylish Heavenly Creatures, which proved that there was more to the director's talents than just admittedly awesome gore of his early horror work. The movie features the sensational debut of 19-year-old Kate Winslet and the equally awesome Melanie Lynskey in a daring and masterful tale that tells the true story of Pauline Parker and Juliet Holm, two teenage girls in 1950s New Zealand who formed an obsessive relationship which spiraled scarily out of control. As the movie's narrative and plotting become more entangled, Jackson manages a sublime detour into the girls' dysfunctional CGI wonderland of Barovnia, which they are only able to access during moments of rage, ecstasy, or sexual pleasure. It's a tantalizing glimpse into Jackson's ability to create fantasy landscapes and highlights the girls' tender erotic relationship and siege mentality perfectly. It's them versus the world. The Kiwi legend proves that his independently produced movies fit his more low-budget filmmaking sensibilities perfectly. However, this round ultimately goes to the other beardy genius whose career has been defined by his ability to fully embrace beautiful, personally crafted fairy tales. Verdict: Guillermo Del Toro.
Cut the crap.
Round 5, alternative and future projects. We're down to the business end of this contest, and both of the contenders have one final round to discover who will be sailing away to find peace in the undying lands and who will be forced to dine for an eternity with the Pale Man. The fairest way to settle the contest is then to look at what the future holds for both directors and also the kind of alternative projects they've been working on. Guillermo Del Toro's most high-profile and mostly excellent recent project is the Netflix anthology series Guillermo Del Toro's Cabinet of Curiosities, in which he is an executive producer and writer on. The series features 8 macabre and horrific episodes that feature a range of disturbing but cool moments, mainly featuring giant rats, autopsies, stabbings, cosmic horror, and the disturbing effect that a much sought-after face cream has. He also has his intriguingly dark, charming take on Pinocchio to look forward to, as well as a Michael Mann documentary and a currently untitled werewolf western project.
These waves are mine.
fine. Peter Jackson spent much of the early 2000s back in Middle-earth with the overbloated but ambitious Hobbit trilogy, and really, did it need to be 3 movies? There's a shit ton of dishwashing and walking in those movies. Also, would the movies have been better if the original choice to direct them, Mr. Del Toro himself, was able to helm them in the end? We will never know. His more recent projects, however, have included a tantalizing glimpse into the English music legends The Beatles with a mini TV documentary series, The Beatles Get Back, as well as the long gestating Tintin sequel, The Adventures of Tintin, Red Rackham's Treasure. Do we really need that movie in our lives, though? Hit us up in the comments with your opinion. So ultimately, the bearded genius who has the most ambitious and compelling projects lined up is the Mexican filmmaker who brought us the unforgettable imagery of Pan's Labyrinth, the badassery of 2 Hellboy movies, and the director whose future just looks a little cooler than the incredible Peter Jackson's. This round and this contest overall therefore goes to Guillermo Del Toro.
Cut the crap.
Now, what are you waiting for? Netflix, greenlight a season 2 of Cabinet of Curiosities already. But don't let us have the final word. Tell us in the comment which iconic filmmaker is your favorite, Peter Jackson or Guillermo Del Toro. And as always, thanks for watching.